himself is a practicing Catholic. He does not respond directly to the conversation in the documents we have, but we're still waiting to hear the campaign's explanation for all of this. In moments, we'll be joined by noted evangelical leader Tony Perkins from the Family Research Council and then Karl Rove on the possible fallout politically. But we begin tonight with Trace Gallagher for the very latest on this breaking news, live from our West Coast newsroom. Trace?
Megyn, the indication from these Catholic-bashing emails is that both Rupert Murdoch and the managing editor of the Wall Street Journal, Robert Thompson, decided to raise their children Catholic, not because of their religious beliefs, but rather for social and political benefits. Robert Halpin writes, quote, "It's an amazing bastardization of the faith. They must be attracted to the systemic thought and severely backwards gender relations and must be totally unaware of Christian democracy." Top Clinton aide John Podesta, who again is Catholic, did not respond. Jen Palmieri did, writing, quote, "I imagine they think it is the most socially acceptable, politically conservative religion. Their rich friends wouldn't understand if they became evangelicals." Halpin writes back, quoting, "Excellent point. They can throw around Thomistic thought and subsidiarity and sound sophisticated because no one knows what the hell they're talking about. Thomistic thought is the philosophy of St. Thomas Aquinas. Subsidiarity, the belief that things are better handled at a local level instead of a central government." The Catholic League responded to the email saying, quote, "These anti-Catholic remarks are bad enough, but it makes one wonder what else Clinton's chiefs and others associated with the campaign are saying about Catholics and Catholicism." We should point out this is a religious group the Clinton campaign should covet. A poll from the Public Religion Research Institute showed that likely Catholic voters favored Hillary Clinton over Trump 55% to 34%. And a Georgetown study shows that in the past 16 presidential elections, Catholics have voted Republican only 3 times, once for Nixon, twice for Reagan. Again, we emailed the Clinton campaign for a response. So far, nothing.
Trace, thank you. Joining me now with more, President of the Family Research Council, Tony Perkins. Tony, good to see you again. And so the hostility toward Christians in this, and in the one paragraph, in particular Catholics, as this man describes as bastardizing the faith and dismissing the entire Catholic belief system as severely backwards when it comes to gender relations, and on he goes. And Clinton's campaign communications director seems to agree wholeheartedly.
Megyn, this should be no surprise to those who listen to what Hillary Clinton says. Remember, this is the same elitist vineyard that gave us the term basket of deplorables, used going further even to say that they're irredeemable, which obviously is a concept that stands in stark contrast to what evangelicals and Catholics believe, as they believe and cling to the redemptive work of Jesus Christ. This should be troubling to people that see that they believe that people who actually want to live by their faith are somehow backwater people. Look, there's a lot of Americans who literally simply want to live their lives according to their faith, and it's clear that Hillary Clinton and her team hold them in disdain.
The thing that seems to really horrify them in this email exchange is that Rupert Murdoch, the owner of this channel, and Robert Thompson, head of News Corp, that they had the nerve to baptize their children Catholic and want to raise them Catholic, which has these officials who want the Catholic vote. The Catholic vote has actually proven very important for Democrats in past elections. Hold in disdain. They're disgusted by it. They can't believe that they would want to baptize and raise a baby Catholic.
Well, that's stuff people in the flyover states do, not people in sophisticated places do, according to them. Again, this is where Hillary Clinton talks about the freedom to worship. It's okay if you just kind of go to church and treat it as a social club, a glorified social club, but if you literally want to teach your children these principles, live your life according to that, you're going to run into trouble with Hillary Clinton. And I think
but it's not her. I mean, in fairness to Hillary, it's not her. It's her campaign chairman who doesn't weigh in, but it's their communications director and this other guy who's Center for American Progress.
Look, let me tell you, I'm not going to allow a communication director for me to speak about something in a way that is not consistent with what I believe. Look, this is the same campaign that gave birth out of the mouth of Hillary Clinton the term deplorables, irredeemable, talking about Trump supporters who are evangelicals and socially conservative Catholics. This is troubling, should be troubling politically for her, not because these evangelicals, maybe the Catholics, not the evangelicals, are going to vote for her, but it shows the hostility toward religious freedom, and that is where these evangelicals are right now, uncertain about Trump, but now they see the hostility from Hillary Clinton, that their religious freedom is at stake in this election.
She was raised Methodist, although she doesn't appear to be a practicing Methodist because she doesn't go to church and so on, but you can see certainly how those around her feel about practicing Catholics, or those who have the nerve to actually baptize their children. Tony, good to see you.
Thanks, Megyn.
Also here on this breaking story, Fox News contributor and former Deputy Chief of Staff to President George W. Bush, Karl Rove. Karl, good to see you. You tell me whether Jen Palmieri and you know, this other guy is not with the Clinton campaign, but Jen Palmieri weighs in and adds her own 2 cents, ridiculing Catholics, ought to come out with an apology to this voting bloc, which is almost as powerful as the African-American vote and many others.
Well, look, roughly a quarter of the electorate are Catholics. It's the largest swing group. Contrary to, just slightly to what Trey said earlier, if you look at the exit polls, since 1972, Catholics, with one exception, have voted in each and every presidential election for the ultimate winner. The one exception was 2000, when they voted for Al Gore in the exit polls by 50 to 47. But even that was an extraordinary gain for Bush, who got 10 points more among Catholics than Bob Dole's 37%. So they play a critical role in the election. Now, will this become a political issue? I think it all depends upon whether or not both politically interested Catholics and, more importantly, the Trump campaign make it an issue. This was thinly veiled religious bigotry, not only against conservative Catholics, but also against evangelicals. Sort of the back and forth is they're conservative Catholics because they couldn't take the social pressure of being evangelicals, because that is even more out of the mainstream.
Right, because that's even more disgusting.
Yeah, so the question is rather than talking about Paul Ryan tomorrow, who is incidentally a Catholic, what about tomorrow if Donald Trump stands up and takes a whack at these comments and calls upon the campaign and the campaign officials in question to both repudiate them and apologize? I mean, this is the only way it's going to become an issue. In 2000, we had a very active Catholic organization that could have spread this word and made it an issue in every critical battleground state. I don't sense that that's the case in the Trump campaign this year around. It'll take him to make it an issue.
This woman, Jen Palmieri, she's high up in the Clinton campaign. This is not some minion.
One of her key lieutenants.
And you tell me what the Clinton team would be doing to the Trump team if Kellyanne Conway or any of the inner circle came out and said something this disdainful of an entire voting bloc, whether it was, I mean, you know, put the shoe on the other foot, right? If they said something about gays, or if they put, you know, something that a voting bloc that they consider in their column, they'd be going nuts on it, and they'd be demanding an apology.
Exactly. Well, look, and they mock the deep-held beliefs. They mock the idea that two conservative Catholics would have their children baptized in the same river where John the Baptist baptized Jesus. I mean, this is really amazing that they would mock them for, I mean, what Christians would consider it wouldn't consider it a blessing to be able to afford to baptize their children in the Jordan River. I mean, this is it's so insensitive. I'm going to say that it's insensitive, but it really strikes me that it borders on bigotry, religious bigotry. But the question is, the question you started with is it going to be a political issue? It depends upon whether or not Donald Trump intends to make it a political issue.
Well, remember this, Carl. Remember
in
the 2008 election when Barack Obama was running, this became an issue for the Democrats then because he was caught on tape referring to those who are religious as bitter clingers. That's the bitter clingers song that became so infamous. I think we have it. Listen.
And they feel so betrayed by government.
So it's not surprising then that they get bitter and they claim to downs or religion or antipathy towards people who aren't like them.
So, and that was not helpful. That was not particularly helpful to Barack Obama's campaign.
Right. Not at all. Not at all. But look, do you think the media, without some prodding, without somebody making it an issue, that most of the media is going to pay attention to this? Most of the media is secular. Most of the media doesn't claim to understand or care to understand the deeply held beliefs of people of faith. And so we can't count on NBC and ABC and CBS, the producers and the news directors saying, oh, this is a story worth covering. No, it's going to have to be made an issue by Donald Trump and his allies stepping forward and saying this is unacceptable, and Hillary Clinton ought to repudiate it.
She's
and
been
Jen
out
Palmieri
there.
ought to.
Hillary has been out there condemning Donald Trump's comments about Muslims, calling for religious tolerance, saying that she's been an advocate her whole life for religious freedom. And now the question is, what is she going to do? And what is her communications director going to do when she is caught having this kind of an exchange about this many millions of Americans who have deeply held, honest, sincere beliefs that she's in no position to judge? Carl, we'll wait to see.
What about some religious respect in addition to tolerance? So what about some respect for the beliefs of people?
Great to see you. Well, we're waiting for comments. We're waiting for some sort of remark back from them. Look, these are hacked documents, right? This comes from the WikiLeaks dump, so it's controversial. But so is the content. And you ask yourself what the Clinton team would be doing right now if this kind of thing came out from Team Trump. In the meantime, we're watching Donald Trump tonight to see if he speaks to any of the breaking news tonight down in Panama City Beach, Florida. Before we'll be joined by Trump spokesperson Katrina Pearson and former Romney campaign chief strategist Stu Stevens, who will be talking about the road ahead to the next big debate. Breaking tonight, 28 days now from the election. 28 days. And a new poll showing how Americans reacted to the second presidential debate. The Wall Street Journal survey was conducted one day after the release of a leaked video showing Mr. Trump making stunning remarks about women on a bus. And it showed Donald Trump going into the Sunday debate trailing Hillary Clinton by 11 points. Then on Monday, after the debate, they polled again, and Mr. Trump had improved by 2 points, suggesting the worst of the damage from that tape may have been accounted for. Tonight, Mr. Trump is in Florida, expected to hit the Clinton camp on the latest WikiLeaks revelations. In moments, we'll be joined by Stu Stevens, former chief strategist for Mitt Romney's 2012 presidential campaign. But we begin tonight with Katrina Pearson, Trump campaign national spokesperson. Katrina, good to see you. Can I just get your reaction to that story about the Catholic bashing?
You know, this is not something that, is news to us. We've known Miss Clinton has had issues with many Americans, and Mr. Trump even said it at the debate, Megyn. He said she has hatred in her heart. And yes, these are her staffers, but this is a direct reflection of her. We've seen it in the way that she's addressed many other Americans here recently. All
right, but let me ask you whether you think it makes any difference at this point, because we're 28 days out. Trump went up 2 points from the debate, but there is still a 9-point gap between the two of them. And, at this point in the 2012 election, we're going to talk to Romney's guy, Stu Stewart's in a moment. Romney was up by 1, and he still lost handily. Trump's down by 9.
Well, in one of these polls you mentioned earlier, we're looking at, a 6 to 7 point margin of error. So I'll take that. Mr. Trump has closed a similar gap in 1 week. You with the Trump
team
in
love
1 week.
The polls. You can't reject the ones.
Well, they are a snapshot
that
in
we
time.
present to you just because they're bad for
we realize that. Well, no, they are a snapshot in time. We realize that. But as I just said, Mr. Trump has been able to close large gaps within 1 week, and that's exactly what's going to happen. This isn't going to be like a 2012. We have a candidate that's willing to fight for it. Not like the 2012 campaign. Mr. Trump is going to come out swinging, which is exactly what he's done today. We have a fantastic new ad that's out.
What is he doing to add to his support base, which we understand is with him?
Well, he's talking about his vision. He is actually prosecuting the case against Hillary Clinton. You saw that at the debate as well. And that's why so many people in your Frank Luntz's group that you had, the focus group, said that Mr. Trump won that debate and won some people over. That is very important. It's extremely important for Mr. Trump to continue to outline the differences between he and Hillary Clinton and their policies, and more importantly, her failures after being in elected office for 30 years between herself and her husband.
Is there any truth, Katrina, to the Wall Street Journal report tonight that what Trump is actually trying to do now in these next 28 days, we've got 4 weeks to Election Day, is to drive down turnout for her, to depress enthusiasm on the Democratic side, understanding that he's not going to get that many swing voters in the middle. He's going to get his base, and he's trying to make her base be smaller than his base.
No, not at all. I mean, the media is always trying to create the Trump narrative. Mr. Trump is fighting for every vote, even those that we know we might not win. He's still going to fight for that. We look at a poll in Texas, CBS poll has Mr. Trump at 20% African American support in the state of Texas. Mr. Trump is reaching some of those people, though they may not be showing up in the polls.
He's running as a Republican.
No, African Americans, that's a big difference. He's doing extremely well with a lot of these people that aren't showing up in the polls, and we do see his numbers continue to grow at his rallies. Those people are going to vote, just as they talked about in the primary, that these big rallies will turn into votes, and he broke records. We're going to continue to see it. This is a movement. This is not a campaign.
Okay, great to see you. Joining us now is Stu Stevens, former chief strategist for Mitt Romney's presidential campaign and founding partner at Strategic Partners in Media. Stu, let me just start with you before we get to that ad where I left off with Katrina on where Romney was this time 4 years ago, and just how bad you think the 9-point gulf is.
Well, it's bad. The more telling thing, I think, is that the two groups that Trump needs to get back into this race is Republicans. Any nominee has to get over 90% of their own party to be in the game. Otherwise, you're running out on the Super Bowl field with 8 players instead of 11. And he needs suburban women. Particularly college-educated women. No Republican has lost college-educated white voters since the FDR era. I mean, Barry Goldwater won college-educated white voters, and Trump is losing them. So to get into the game, he needs as many Republicans as he can get, and he needs as many well-educated women, suburban women in particular, in places like Philadelphia. And what's he doing? He's today attacking Republicans, and this attack on Hillary Clinton, I think, just turns off a lot of women that he needs to get to vote for him.
Just so the viewers know what we're talking about, he went on a tweet storm this morning. I heard just a couple examples. It's so nice that the shackles have been taken off me and I can now fight for America the way I want to. And then he takes aim at Republicans, saying disloyal Republicans, ours, are far more difficult than crooked Hillary. They come at you from all sides. They don't know how to win. I will teach them. And that's just a couple there that he went on from there, Stu.
Yeah, it's a curious strategy for bringing a party together, which party unity is an essential element of winning in our two-party system. I get that Donald Trump doesn't like everybody in the Republican Party and vice versa, but it's up to him as the head of the ticket to try to bring people together instead of being divisive.
So what do you think? I mean, give us your take on the last debate. You know, which he says all the polls say that he won, which is not true. But you know, some people do definitely believe Trump won that debate, and he certainly did much better in the eyes of many than at the first debate. You have a different take.
Yeah, I thought Trump spoke to his base too much in that debate. I mean, really. A debate is an opportunity to reach voters in a way that you can't reach them through any other means, and voters who you need to get to join you. It's not just to pump up your own voters. So if you look at it, that what he really needed were female voters, particularly these better educated women. I just think it was sort of a disaster for him in that regard. Everything from his manner to that sort of strange half apology at the beginning, to this stunt of bringing out the Bill Clinton accusers. I just think the idea of trying to attack a woman for infidelities of her husband, I just think rubs a lot of people,
you know, they say it's for her role.
Way.
It's for her role. It's sort of the offender and then the cleanup crew.
I'm glad I don't have to try to spin that. I just don't think it's something that. The difference between that is so fine, and I get it, but I don't think the total impression is that he's really blaming her for Bill Clinton.
Final question. Can he turn it around? Any chance? I mean, what are the odds that he can turn this around?
Well, you know, politics is always about probability, and probability is based on what has happened. Can he turn it around? Sure, of course. Is Hillary Clinton the better bet? Yes.
Mm-hmm. He turned it around after the Democratic National Convention. They were running neck and neck, and then came Alicia Machado and some other incidents that have now been well publicized. Stuart, great to see you.
Good to see you.
And in just 9 days, for the first time ever, a Fox News anchor will be moderating a general election presidential debate, and we are very proud of our own Chris Wallace. Widely regarded as one of the best questioners in the business, he will moderate the all-important final debate between Trump and Clinton. This make-or-break event, less than 3 weeks before the historic election of 2016, will be held, where else? In Vegas, baby. October 19th. And the best place to watch the Fox moderated debate is right here on the Fox News channel. And then stay tuned for the Kelly File live at 11 p.m. with complete wrap-up and analysis of the night's biggest moments. Don't miss it. Also tonight, several media outlets starting to question the stories of the women accusing Bill Clinton of sexual assault and accusing Hillary Clinton of helping with the cover-up and the aftermath. Judge Andrew Napolitano is here to review the record. Plus, leaked emails are raising questions about whether CNN contributor Donna Brazile sent the Clinton team inside information ahead of the questions at a candidate town hall. Howie Kurtz just got off the phone with Brazile. He's now here, and he will tell us what the now head of the DNC had to say. Plus, we'll have reaction from Dana Lash and Richard Fowler on a busy night. Don't go away.
This crooked media, you talk about crooked Hillary, they're worse than she is. They are so dishonest. Without the media, Hillary Clinton couldn't be elected dog catcher. I mean that. True.
From the start of his campaign, right up until last night, Donald Trump has consistently accused the media of working against him. Now, WikiLeaks has uncovered a number of emails that suggest perhaps there may have been some coordination between some well-known folks on TV and some high-ranking members of the Clinton campaign. We asked Howie Kurtz to investigate that charge. He's the host of Media Buzz on the Fox News channel. Howie, what'd you find?
Hi, Megyn. Well, the latest batch of hacked emails disclosed by WikiLeaks is causing headaches not just for candidates, but for journalists and commentators. Donna Brazile, the acting Democratic Party chair, is in hot water tonight over an incident last March when she was a CNN contributor. Brazile was the DNC's vice chair while working at CNN, but has temporarily suspended her network contract for now. The day before a CNN town hall with Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, Brazile wrote the Clinton campaign, "From time to time, I get the questions in advance. Here's one that worries me about HRC." It involved the death penalty, with Brazile citing these statistics. 156 people have been on death row and later set free. Since 1976, 1,414 people have been executed in the U.S. And this was the town hall question.
Since 1976, we've executed 1,414 people in this country. Since 1973, 156 who were convicted have been exonerated from the death row.
A CNN spokesman told us no contributors get questions beforehand, and Donna Brazile told me moments ago she's not sure about the reference in her email, but that, quote, contributors, even analysts, get nowhere near that process. I wasn't involved. I'm never involved. I find it flabbergasting. It's ridiculous. So what's described in an illegally hacked email can sometimes be more ambiguous in real life, especially when a cable commentator doubles as a top party official. It's not unusual for partisan commentators to check in with campaigns, but any sharing of questions before an event would be a journalistic breach. The WikiLeaks dump also includes John Harwood, CNBC's Washington bureau chief, who drew plenty of negative reviews last year for the way he treated Donald Trump as a debate moderator.
Let's be honest. Is this a comic book version of a presidential campaign? I talked to economic advisors who have served presidents of both parties. They said that you have as much chance of cutting taxes that much without increasing the deficit as you would of flying away from that podium by flapping your arms.
Now we learn that weeks after that debate, Harwood chastised the Republicans in an email to Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, John Podesta. Quote, I imagine that Obama feels some sad vindication at this demonstration of his years-long point about the opposition party veering off the rails. I certainly am feeling that way with respect to how I questioned Trump at our debate. And in a message to Podesta after the Clinton email scandal broke, Harwood included a tweet he had posted, set aside process. If there's any specific, plausible suggestion of nefarious email Hillary Clinton was trying to hide, I haven't heard it. But Harwood and reporters like him attempt to build relationships with campaign officials to get scoops and interviews. And Harwood did try to book Podesta for CNBC. Megyn?
Howie, thank you. Joining us now with more, Dana Lash, host of Dana on the Blaze TV, and Richard Fowler, a Fox News contributor now, yay, and nationally syndicated radio talk show host. Great to have you both.
Good to be here, Megyn.
Let's talk about this. Now, the thing with Brazile, I mean, I'll tell you this, as a debate moderator myself, I cannot imagine anyone at CNN ever leaking a question to anyone. I mean, it would be the height of unethical. I can't imagine it. And yet the question, you know, as asked, and what was in that email, Dana, was almost verbatim.
It's a remarkable coincidence, isn't it, Megyn? The thing is I'm with you. I mean, I can't imagine someone leaking it, but at the same time, it's Occam's razor. You can't sit here and deny the obvious. The question was almost identical to the one that was asked at the town hall, and it's not beyond the realm of possibility to think that perhaps maybe Donna Brazile was able to obtain this question in advance. And then, of course, I mean, she's the head of the party. She's going to pass that off to the party's nominee, Hillary Clinton.
But she was a Democrat. She wasn't the head of the party then, but she was a Democrat.
No,
but,
not then, but she did become it.
Just for kicks, I Googled the language, and it does pull up the Equal Justice Initiative, which has almost exactly the same language, saying since 1973, 156 people have been released from death row after evidence of their innocence was uncovered. So this may be boilerplate language that, death penalty opponents have on their websites. We don't have proof to show collusion.
We don't, Megyn, and let me tell you, let me be very frank on this one. I know Donna Brazile very, very, very well, and there's no stretch of the imagination that Donna would ever do anything like this, which is the reason why the party chose her to be the interim chair after the leak with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So I dismiss this on face just based on the reputation that Donna Brazile has to both me and many people watching tonight. But additionally, and to a larger perspective, right? So there's this argument constantly pushed by the Trump campaign that we saw on the bump into this segment of the media being so crooked and being so awful and being so tainted. But if you look at the numbers, Megyn, Donald Trump has got more earned media than any candidate in recent history.
But he wants it to be favorable. He wants it to be favorable coverage.
But here's the thing. Any press is good press, is what you learn in journalism school, right? And number two, and I think the most important point is if the liberal media had so much power, why is it that Republicans still have control of the Congress? They still have control of the Senate. If the media, quote unquote, hated George Bush, but he won in 2000, he won in 2004.
Go ahead, Dana. Respond to that.
Yeah. Well, of course, we don't have the White House, unfortunately, and I think we've been fighting in spite of media bias.
That's your fault, Dana, not ours.
There is. No, it's not actually a fact. Come on, Richard. No, there's absolute media bias in network media. You know that as well as I do. There's also left outlets and right outlets that are both equally biased. But here's the thing. We've had network news and we've had major publishers of newspapers, etc., that have been biased for a long time. There is absolute proof of media bias. We know this. And it's not just against Trump, Megyn. Media has been biased against Republicans, period, for such a long time. The whole vast right-wing conspiracy, everything that we've seen from the WikiLeaks emails or the document dumps so far. I mean, we know that there's a bias here. I mean, for crying out loud, we had George Stephanopoulos back in 2012 during the debates insert that answer about birth control, which then flipped the entire general election cycle to become this whole war on women narrative, which was crazy.
There's no question that most of the people in news lean left, and that there's a liberal bias baked in. I mean, the news tends to be young. It tends to be a bunch of young people.
Yeah,
they tend to be left-leaning.
They can at least be objective.
But just, the interesting thing about John Harwood's tweet, can I tell you this, is that he tweeted that, that stuff about Trump right at a couple weeks after Trump was doing the thing with the belt buckle and Ben Carson, and his conduct was extremely controversial and in the news in Republican circles and Democrat circles.
Yeah.
And you just never know. I mean, you don't know whether he's got the same kind of emails to Marco Rubio's campaign, to Ted Cruz's campaign. We only have a snippet of the perspective here. So in defense of my fellow journalists, great to see you both.
Good to see you, Megyn.
Well, with a growing number of media outlets now digging into the stories from Bill Clinton's accusers, who you may have recognized at the presidential debate, we asked Judge Napolitano to help us review the record and separate fact from fiction. He's next. Plus, with a number of news outlets still challenging the Trump team about his 2005 remarks on women, Dr. Ben Carson joins us with his message for the media.
From the world headquarters of Fox News, it's The Kelly File with Megyn Kelly.
Well, a growing number of media outlets are now starting to question the stories of the women who are accusing Bill Clinton of sexual assault and accusing Hillary Clinton of helping to cover it up. We decided to take our own look at the record, and Judge Andrew Napolitano is here to help us with that in a moment. But first, Trace Gallagher lays out the case. Trace?
Megyn, Paula Jones was an Arkansas state employee in 1991. At the Excelsior Hotel in Little Rock, she claims that Bill Clinton then dropped his pants and asked for sex. After years of legal battles, a judge dismissed the case, ruling the allegations, even if true, would not constitute sexual harassment. Clinton agreed to settle the case for $850,000, but Jones' allegations did lead to the discovery of the Monica Lewinsky affair. Then there's Kathleen Willey, a White House aide who claims in 1993 the president put her hand on his genitals. But Willie didn't come forward until 5 years later when she was subpoenaed in the Paula Jones case. And a friend gave sworn testimony that Willie asked her to lie about the incident. An independent prosecutor said there was insufficient evidence to go forward. Juanita Broderick was initially known as Jane Doe 5 in the Paula Jones case. She gave a sworn affidavit saying she was raped in 1978 by Bill Clinton, but then she appeared to deny the allegation before later changing her story, saying she was raped. In 1975, Hillary Clinton defended a man accused of raping 12-year-old Kathy Shelton. As part of her defense, Clinton accused the 12-year-old of being emotionally unstable, fantasizing about older men, and making prior false accusations. It wasn't until 2007 that Kathy Shelton even knew Hillary Clinton was involved in the case. And at the time, she had no hard feelings. But in 2014, an audio of Clinton discussing the case and laughing about it went public. Clinton claimed she wasn't laughing about the case, but about the absurdity of the system. Now Kathy Shelton claims that Hillary Clinton put her through hell because of a psychological exam. But the Washington Post says, yes, Hillary Clinton requested the exam, but a judge denied that request. Shelton to this day maintains that she was examined. Her attacker served less than 1 year in jail. Megyn.
Trace, thank you. Joining me now, Fox News senior judicial analyst and New York Times best-selling author, hello, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, great to see you.
Good to be with you.
What's the name of the book?
Well, I had a couple that were bestsellers. I think the one they're talking about is called Suicide Pact.
Okay, good. Just want to give you a little promo.
Thank you.
So how do you, there's three that we're talking about here who are accusing him directly. One who was a rape victim whose attacker Hillary defended.
The three that are accusing him directly are cases that were never proved or were alleged many, many years after the series of events. The only case in which Bill Clinton paid out any money was after the case was dismissed because they feared it would be reinstated and he'd have to go through, he was sitting president at the time, more testimony
The Paula
in a
Jones
trial.
settlement to me sounds like a nuisance value settlement. He paid her $850,000.
And it
the
wasn't-
vast majority was legal fees.
Correct.
Only $200 went to her.
Correct. And none of it was his money. It was all raised.
That's what
all
you do
raised
to
in
get
his
rid of these
behalf.
matters when you're
Exactly.
somebody like the President of the United
Exactly.
States.
And I must.
So we don't know whether these are true. We don't know that they're not true.
We all know that we know that they all had serious problems with proof, which is why none of them ever were laid out before a judge and jury.
Now, both Kathleen Willie and Juanita Broderick refused to come forward for some time publicly and then denied that he had done anything to them for some period of time. That, however, doesn't account for the fact that they may have been intimidated. He was a man of power. They may have been reluctant to do so. But where I get held up as a lawyer, you tell me, is that the people want to condemn Hillary with not believing them and with, trying to silence them and get rid of them, get them out of the public picture. But there was no proof when she was going after them.
I got to tell you, I don't think Hillary is at fault in this case, in any of these cases.
I'm going to fall out of my chair because the judge is defending Hillary Clinton.
Listen, we're not talking about emails here. We're talking about a wife standing by her husband when claims are made against the husband, as to which the proof is, as you say, lacking. Claims that were late, claims that lacked credibility, claims that were partially true, claims that were eventually retracted and then reinstated. What woman wouldn't stand by her husband in that circumstance?
How about the child whose rapist Hillary defended?
The file that Trace looked at and I looked at showed Hillary Clinton doing a professional job to defend him. She wasn't a serious, seasoned criminal defense lawyer, but she did what she had to do, what the law permits.
Well, that's a first right here in the Kelly File. Judge Andrew Napolitano, great to see you.
Good to be with you, man.
Coming up, Ben Carson and Donald Trump's son, Eric Trump. Stay tuned. It's been just 4 days since those now infamous remarks surfaced. And Eric Trump, the son of Donald Trump, is offering a new defense for his father, telling a Colorado newspaper, quote, "I think sometimes when guys are together, they get carried away. And sometimes that's what happens when alpha personalities are in the same presence." He went on to say it's not right. It's not the person that he is. Joining me now, Dr. Ben Carson, Trump supporter and former presidential candidate. Dr. Carson, good to see you. You also said this is wrong, but also said it's locker room talk and that kind of banter goes on all the time. You tell me, listen, I I think there's a real argument to be made that dismissing that kind of talk as just locker room talk and regular banter between alpha males is a very damaging message to be sending to our children, our sons and our daughters today, that dismissive tone and nature. Do you disagree with me?
Well, it's not dismissing it. That's not what I'm doing. It is horrible. There's no excuse for it, and it's not acceptable. Here's the issue. The issue is our country is in a tremendous amount of trouble, and we're only a month away from the election.
That's true.
And
but the
people
point on the other side is that if you
listen,
have a candidate who doesn't respect half of the country, women, that's also an issue.
Listen to what I'm saying, because this is critical. The country can move in one of two different directions. The Democrats are going in one direction. The Republicans are going in another direction. Look at their platforms. This is huge, but I don't think the average person recognizes the vast difference between the two directions because they're focusing on this kind of thing. It doesn't mean that it's not important. That's subterfuge when everybody comes along and says, this is the most important thing, and you can't forget. No, of course it's important. But when you're about to go off the cliff, you've got to take measures to make sure you don't go off the cliff, and then you deal with the other things.
Do you think Trump was right to go after the Republican Party today? He had just managed, he was down at, I think, 74% of the party was with him after that video. Then he got it up to 89 after the debate, and then he attacks the Republican Party, who he needs to win.
Well, you know, it's well known that the Republican Party always finds a way to snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory. Hopefully we can avoid it this time. We don't need the infighting. You'll notice that the Democrats disagree too, but they march lockstep. And it's so important. I wish the Republicans could learn that lesson. It's so critical because they got to look at the future.
They have 28 days to do so. Dr. Carson, always a pleasure. Thanks for being here.
Okay, you too, Megyn.
We'll be right back. From Catholics tonight. I, too, was raised Catholic and am Catholic, and I talk about my faith in my new book, Settle for More, out November 15th. You can pre-order it now, BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon.com, lots of behind-the-scenes stuff about TV news and Fox in general. Check it out.